Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, the show where we bring you all things automotive. It has to do with the car business. I bring you the experts that share with us what they do, how they do it, and why you might want to consider doing it yourself. Because that's how we grow. The more we know about each other's business, the more we know on how to keep our customers happy. And it just grows and grows and grows. And it's funny because the service business at a dealership is an interesting one. They are not all created the same. Some of you may have seen a video that I did on my Chrysler Crossfire service nightmare experience at my local dealer. And I posted that last mid-July of 2020. And I'd say at the beginning of the week, it had about 4,800 views on YouTube. And this evening, less than a week later, it's going to hit 14,000 views and probably a couple of hundred comments. What's interesting is that people talk about car service. There seems to be a resurgence on the customer experience, what people are experiencing, good, bad, or indifferent. And what I'm noticing is that people are actually commenting on other people's comments. It's kind of comical. So people are taking the time to look at the video, to understand the experience, and then read everybody's comments and banter back and forth. So I figured that since we're talking about car service, who better than Mr. Live in the Drive himself, John Fairchild, to bring on the show and share with us some of the things that he's doing in the space that makes his dealers very happy. So, John, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I appreciate that very much, Paul. And what an intro, dude. That was fantastic. And yeah, we were kind of talking off air about your service experience. And, it is something that really strikes at people's emotions, that obviously that car is very important to them, the mobility and not having it. And in a lot of cases, that's your baby, right? And so, people get emotional about it, and I definitely saw some of the stuff from the first time you posted that, and that's kind of interesting how they get wings again and keep on going. So
yeah.
that was cool.
Now, you and I know each other, but there may be a couple of people that don't know you. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background, how you got into the car business, what moves you, and then we'll jump right into it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Paul. And yeah, Paul and I have known each other for a few years now, and been associated through conferences and different fixed operations events. And as for myself, I appreciate the opportunity, Paul, for letting me come on your program and speak for a few minutes. My biggest thing is making myself aware to the public, and so if I can help them, they can get a hold of me. People don't know me, then they don't know me. So thank you very much. But as for who I am, I've been in the car business since I was 15 years old, started cleaning the floors at a local shop and, worked my way up through every position in fixed operations and actually became a general manager for a time. And after that, I got out of retail. So I spent probably 22 years in retail. And since then, I've been consulting. I've had my own business, Fairchild Automotive Solutions, for the last 11 years. And really what we do, Paul, as you know, but your viewers can know also, is we help dealers maximize profitability from their existing traffic and to actually maximize their customer satisfaction as well. So I guess all told, I've been in the business 41 years this year, since 1980. So I feel fortunate, and I really, it's corny. People say you too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm old too. No, but people say it's very corny that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I really eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. It doesn't feel unusual to be doing something at 8 p.m. on a Sunday about quote unquote work, because I feel like there are activities in my life, and what I do to help dealerships is a huge part of my life, and I really love doing it, and really turns me on to get engaged with a dealer client that wants to maximize their potential and push away the fear and the uncertainty and get to work. So I love what I do. That's what I do in a nutshell, Paul. But yeah, I've been a service advisor for a number of years. I was a parts manager, a parts counter person, a service manager. So I've been in the trenches, and I work with those type of people on a daily basis.
Awesome. Before we go much further, let's get caught up on a couple of the comments because sometimes I fall behind.
Yeah, please. You got comments?
We got some comments.
Let me get my LinkedIn.
All right, starting off with John Fraser. I think he sent me a text. He's in a restaurant somewhere catching the show while having
Thanks,
dinner.
John.
John says, hello, Walt. Ty Thompson. Ty the transport guy. This guy's teaching me everything about the transportation business, which is
That's cool.
So much to it that I had no idea. And being in the business as long as we've been in the business, I know that most dealers don't have any idea. So please connect with Ty Thompson if you're not already. We got Abel Aguirre. Howdy, y'all. Justin from the Think Tank group on Thursdays. Welcome, Justin. Our favorite Tully Williams. It's all about the hours. Says hello, all.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Cates. Evening, everyone. Robert Sebastian. Hey, guys. Robert's doing our halftime show. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
That would be fun.
And Christine Farnan. Hi, Paul and John.
Hey, Christine.
I love Christine. Christine's awesome.
And Amberly Joseph's with us. Hey, Amberly. Good to see you. Yeah, and you know what? I miss all you guys in person, and that's the truth. I tell you what, I would relish the chance to get back live in a in a scenario where we had a lot of people in a room. So hopefully that's coming in the future.
It is coming for sure. We got Micah Larkin from West Hartford. Mark Grodeke. Hi, Paul. Back on track, catching Sunday Night Live. Mark Williamson. Hello, everyone. And Michael Landis is in the house. Welcome, everyone. And Terry. Terry's in the house. Looking forward to the show. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for the intro. Now, others know a little bit more about you.
Sure.
And there's a lot to this business, right?
Absolutely.
Fixed absorption. You walk into some stores and you ask, hey, what's your absorption? Mm-hmm. Some guys scratch their head. Other guys will tell you, 95%, when most people aren't at 95%. But and there could be several different ways, different manufacturers or different trains of thinking measure fixed absorption also. But you asked me to kind of bullet point some things that I felt like were pain points. You asked me for pain points that I'd often address. And, before we even get into those, the one thing that I've found that makes a successful engagement and with a dealer or a dealer group, that they actually really utilize the consulting, coaching, and training, is that they've got to want it. Right. And I know that sounds very basic, but if, for example, I've built up my clientele really through referrals, as I've spoke to you before, but and people that reach out to me through media, like an advertisement or even something like we're doing right now. Yeah. But if it is so much more a viable relationship if that person is seeking the training to begin with, because then we know that we've got a person I don't have to be in the convincing business. They're already convinced they need help, and they're already ready to put that tool in. They're going to use you as a piece of the puzzle to be able to complete the project they're doing. So the pain points come from the needs analysis and whatever, they'll express them to you, and a lot of them you can uncover they didn't even know they were there. But the first step has got to be that the engagement is really initiated by
the prospect. That's going to make a huge amount of difference in the result. So
those are the Glenn Gary leads, right? Those are the people you want to talk to, the ones that want to talk to you, that are interested.
Yeah.
Not only making change, but see value in what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, on a micro level, as a service advisor, it's the same thing as getting a reference from a customer. If you've treated a customer properly and you've helped them maintain their vehicle in optimal condition, and you've always kept them abreast of everything that was related to why they brought it in, and looked out for them for any immediate concerns they had, and also whatever maintenance that would keep the car running for longevity. And on a micro level, it's the same thing as what I do with the dealer. Is that the dealer is going to feel, if they get results out of that and they get a great experience and they do have optimal performance this time with their dealership and their people, then they're going to feel good about telling somebody else about it. And let's face it, there's a lot of people that need help, but there's also a lot of people that are not ready for help, and that's fine too. That's perfectly fine. But that I think is a phenomenon that really actually creates the cement that makes the engagement work.
But what's great is that you can walk into a store and you can tell, just your observations are key, right? You can walk into a drive and you can see exactly, you can feel the vibe, and you have a pretty good idea based on what you see, what their process is or where they're lacking, and what some of the areas are where they're doing well and areas that they're missing opportunity. And then when you look at the reporting, what they did or what they're doing gives you another idea. And when you walk through the store, it gives you yet more information.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And, like I said, you when you get an inquiry from a dealership, they've typically got the pain points that you mentioned. So, it kind of exposing them one at a time. We can talk about how that's relevant to a service business operation. And I kind of almost put them in order of priority as you asked me about that. But they all kind of boil down to three aspects: poor fixed absorption, slash gross profit, because one will lead into the other, or customer satisfaction on their existing customers. So all of these points that we're going to talk about here really feed into those things. Is increasing profitability, incrementally increasing profitability, and customer satisfaction, which a lot of times on customer satisfaction in the real world, employee satisfaction is what equals customer satisfaction. Because if your employees aren't happy to be there, happy to do what they do, like we were talking about off air, you got to love what you do. Then the customer is not going to get the right treatment or vibe or feeling about it, or relationship with that person.
I think, who's that guy, Richard Branson? He's a big advocate of that, right?
I can imagine. I need to read up on Richard Branson. He's the Virgin guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's a virgin, but.
well, he's got a company. There's several companies that are branded that, so we'll just assume. Let's leave it at that.
Hold on, before we go too further, we say hello to Jay Woolrich. He says, "Hey everyone, Scott Gregg is on. Hello, Christy Elkins. Hello, Christy. Max Del Vento says hello, and Mark Rodeke says every good business owner needs a success partner. Partner being the key."
Michael Larkin asked a question here: is what opening up a client and revealing their pain points? What tools do you use to reveal the pain? The client will really lead you to the most of their pain, because let's face it, you could say, the building is on fire over here, and if that's not their pain point, they don't care what you're going to say about it. So you want to get that pain point, but just to kind of to answer your question directly, what I use a lot of times is analysis of data to look at monetary pain. And you can take an extraction from their DMS, crunch it in a spreadsheet, and reveal what they're having, whether it might be pricing strategy deviations from the team, where they say they're at $150 door rate, for an example, and you got people that are discounting it that willy-nilly, whatever they're doing. You can see basically what you can translate that into, Michael, is whatever that pain point is what would be the ROI with incremental improvement.
Right.
And so, if, for example, I was talking to somebody today, and if you have $100 effective labor rate, every 10th you add to a repair order adds $10, right?
Yeah.
$10 in sales. Well, if you got a 1-to-1 parts ratio, which is common, then really you're adding $20 per repair order in sales for every 10th that you can incrementally add through process improvement, through process execution, and really gain that dealership. That's how you really reveal those pain points into turn that pain around and let's make some money from it. So that gets their attention, to answer your question directly there, Michael.
And you look at things like, one-line ROs.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you look at absolutely. You look, one-line ROs is a big one. That's typically hard to measure within a DMS system. So you do have to do some observational measurement where you maybe even just old-fashioned flip through some repair. You can tell a lot about an operation by just some very fundamental things. If you will examine yesterday's repair orders, flip through them, and you tell if the multi-point inspections have been done, tell if the customer has even been presented any kind of routine maintenance, see if you've got them accepting or declining upsells, etc. So yeah, there are a lot of things, data points to those pain points that you can reveal. For example, one of the first ones on that list that I gave you was, and I think it is number one, and especially some of these franchises and OEMs are putting so much emphasis on the customer experience that, I mean, it could be, chime in if dealers that are general managers and service directors that are on the call right now. It could be the difference between you're profitable or not, very likely. I've got a fairly large store I work with that it's $100,000 a month if they hit it or not. Okay, and that's net profit. So the first thing on my list is low customer satisfaction indicators. So if a dealer calls me and engages me, and that's one of their pain points, then that is certainly on the top of the list. And kind of deducing what the problems are on that, you can use the data, you can use the actual surveys that come back, but you got to keep in mind that you only get the surveys back in a general context of people who have a problem, right? And so you got to look at the whole universe of what's out there. Is the problem really that we're not getting enough surveys in that case? So when a client comes to me with low customer satisfaction indicators, then I take an approach of that and holistically, and I look and see what they're doing proactively and what they're not doing. And of course, look at the concerns that are coming back from customers. Even if you're getting a low volume of surveys back, you've got more than one or two or three customers complaining about the same thing. It's an issue. It's so that's number one.
But the other thing too is that you don't always get that complete picture, though. You don't always have the ability to see all that, because I know from personal experience, and I've seen it many times over, that when you have that customer that is a problem,
right,
not shy about it. I don't know how it happens, but oftentimes the email address, I don't know, somebody misspells the email address, and that customer doesn't end up getting that survey. My Chrysler story, I never got a survey, and I know they have my email because we've communicated via email. So it's quite possible that somehow my email address got corrupted after I left the service department. And
and some dealers have measures to thwart that, where some OEMs, I should say, to where that it's got to be actually entered in the main portal in the OEM's website, not just your DMS. And so they append that pretty often now. So they are watching for that, but yeah, you can still get around that. But more often than not, what I see is lack of volume from your great customers. Let's face it, 90% plus of your customers, they love you already. Those are the ones we got to get those surveys back. Are we asking for a perfect 10 from those people?
Right.
Let me see here what Lowell Wilson was saying. True, you have to observe your advisors. And he's right. I'm looking on some of our comments here. He's right. You can't pull that data out of a DMS. It's
Right.
a lead metric. It determines what the lag metric, what the DMS or the OEM metric is going to be. But observationally is where you're going to really discover whether you're going to do it. Russ.
Well, how about Robert? Robert, we missed Robert here. Says wise dealers know that just the presence of an outside consultant elevates performance. If the consultant is also as caring and knowledgeable as John Fairchild, it's a super win.
No, that's a good point, Robert. And to that point, my wife's got a Honda Pilot, and I had a recent engagement with a Honda dealer. And before they knew who I was, I went and had my vehicle serviced there, her vehicle, and it was very telling. And the advantage to that is that the dealer felt a lot more confident in what kind of recommendations I was giving to them because I've experienced it from their staff.
That's
so
key.
That was key. And I know I'm going to go through the second point here, Paul. That was, I think, the number 2 in everybody's book, if not number 1, and it feeds into number 1 anyway, is unsatisfactory margins in labor and parts. Okay. That's a huge category, but that's a typical pain point that a dealer will have. Okay. And my first aspect at looking at that, Paul, is always going to be, what can we do to better our existing traffic, and what is the most controllable portion of our existing traffic, which is customer pay. Okay. Yes, we can do warranty more efficient. We can do internal more efficient. But as far as legitimately upselling a customer and maximizing that repair order, maximizing the relationship with the customer, it's going to be, what are we doing with our customer pay sales that is creating an unsatisfactory margins in labor and parts. But initially, I'm going to go into the system. I'm going to pull out some data. I'm going to, again, flip through some repair orders. I'm going to talk to some key people. I'm going to observe what's going on. And, you can tell pretty quick if you got low measurements in gross profit, effective labor rate, and sales per repair order, which some people equate to hours per repair order. I know Tully Williams does. That you can put into a formula. And again, from Michael's question, you can put into an equation that really will present what the ROI is. And you got to really keep that ROI in mind. If you think about it that way, is most of the time, if your process deviation is costing you sales, that it really is about execution of process. If you've got satisfactory processes in place or even outlined, it's time to make those come to life and actually execute them. Accountability is key. So on unsatisfactory margins and labor and parts, it's multifaceted. Okay. So we were talking about before we came on air, there's warranty parity out there too. I was telling you about a Chevrolet store I worked with that I just got them a $33 bump on labor per hour for their warranty because they didn't have the wherewithal to apply for it. They had $100 warranty labor rate, and they actually had $139 door rate. So we were able to get them $133 an hour for warranty. So that can be some of the unsatisfactory margins in labor and parts. If you use a grid or not for labor, if we're using an appropriate parts matrix, if we've got our menu pricing strategy formulated properly, on menu stuff, we really have two universes of parts and labor in a service department. And it's this, in this context, is we've got menu and competitive, which can virtually be done anywhere, right? And then we've got proprietary. Well, on the menu and competitive, the goal there is we don't want to be the highest, but we also don't want to be the lowest, right? We want to be competitive. And then from that aspect, we can see how much a percentage of our work we're doing from that and back into an appropriate parts and labor matrix and grid on our repair work, and so we can achieve what those margins in labor and parts should be, Paul.
And to your point, I go to my Subaru dealer. I'm very happy with them. I drive an hour to go there.
Dude, you got a Crossfire and a Subaru?
We have 2 Subarus and a Crossfire.
Don't tell me you got a Tacoma.
No.
Okay. You got 3 cult cars though. The people who drive the cars like you have are exactly like you. They are, in some cases fanatical about they love their cars. They want to maintain them for longevity. They want to get the best performance out of them. They want to get optimal service. So God bless you.
I drive 1 hour one way, and on their menu board, they spell out what like 4 other places charge. And guess what? They are not the cheapest, and they don't need to be.
Right.
What they provide justifies what they charge, but they're just putting it up there so people can see it. Let me just
feel comfortable. Yeah. I mean, and you know what? I'm like that, Paul. I'll pay a little bit extra if I really feel good about the quality, the timing, the consistency of the dealership, or whatever the service is. I really do. And let's not forget that the people at the Subaru stores are really good about it. And it gets down to the individual, but they are building a relationship with you.
Oh, yeah.
So that overcomes a lot of those things that may otherwise be a sticking point. A lot of times they say an upsell, particularly, is predicated on I was reading some of the comments here, and they're having a time of it here. Robert Sebastian said, if we train customers to ask for discounts, they'll ask for discounts.
Right.
Of course they will. Yeah, that's right. But what I'm saying is, if we've got our menu and competitive stuff, that the most important part is that it's just in the ballpark. It doesn't have to be the cheapest. It doesn't. Nope. You don't want to be the highest for certain. But
just want to be in the game. That's all.
Yeah. And so those are some of the things about unsatisfactory margins in labor and parts that come up. Obviously, throughput. All right. Are we being as efficient as we can? Now that we've got the right gross profit percentages, are we putting enough of it through the shop? Are we being efficient in our processes? Are we, where are our inequities, and how can we exploit that to make it better? Kind of feeding into that, we did talk about lack of discipline and accountability of process management and ineffective shop management process. I get that all the time as a pain point.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think really you have to back up and think about what the end result is that you want out of your shop flow. And when you're talking about shop loading, you also have to think about shop unloading. And I'm afraid that a lot of the time we're not really taking the true capacity of the technical skills that we've got in our shop when we're setting up appointments. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be thin on appointments, but we've got to be realistic with them and be able to get as many as we can to be able to process. So, the lack of discipline comes into place if we've got an accountability is that when we got process and we're not executing them, and from a management aspect, we're not out there coaching, we're not out there leading by example, we're not out there maybe even getting in with the customer and showing the advisor or whoever is the customer interface, what exactly we expect from that. So that is a pain point I see. The really, if you think about that, Paul, a lot of times if I go into a scenario and they've had a manager there for a period of time and this is going on, you really got to make a good judgment about that leadership that the person has and their ability or wherewithal. Not to say that people aren't trainable, but is that person on the right seat of the bus?
Right.
And from that aspect, when I get involved with a dealership, what I've got to know at that moment is, are there any sacred cows on your staff that are hands off that we can't talk about, moving to another seat of the bus if necessary, or maybe even pulling over and let's open that door and get them off of the bus and get somebody more appropriate. So the lack of this.
How often do you see something like that?
Oh,
because that's a problem.
A lot. I would say more than half of the engagements have got that as a problem. And
because you can't really fix the problem
exactly
if you allow the nail to stay in the tire.
No, and that's the thing is what you need as a consultant, what as a dealer, what you need out of your consultant is that you're ready to make the commitment to the change, regardless of what it entails to get there. And so I have seen, I'm not a fan of turnover. Turnover is a bad word in this industry, isn't it?
But it's a reality.
No, it is. But if you got the wrong person in that position, you got to commit to getting the right person. Hey, God bless you. If you feel like this person's trainable, and a lot of them are, get them the training they need. This person's never been trained. I hear that a lot. But you know what? You train yourself or not in what you're doing. And so if he's been on the job or he or she an extended period of time, you also need a person to have enough wherewithal to be able to initiate that themselves. So, as far as ineffective shop management, I think one of the key things is not realizing what time banks we have in the different capacities in our different skill categories. Right now, we do have some dealerships out there that each technician is cleaning every ticket, right, Paul? It comes in, it's got a headliner on it, a transmission, and a brake job, and an oil change, and that one technician or that one team is taking care of that ticket, right? But in a lot of shops, particularly domestic, there are specialties still out there. You got high-tech electrical, and that's going to get way more common and way more complicated. You've got diesel, you've got transmission, you've got trim, electrical. You've got all these categories that if you don't truly know what your capacity is there, then you're just really kind of throwing it out there. And when your BDC or your appointment system is making appointments and reservations based on the service advisor's time only, they're really not taking into account what the actual capacity of the shop is. So that is a pain point I see a lot. That is ineffective shop management processes, and that's where it starts. But the
funny thing is that we have the technology to work around that.
Well, you do, but you've got to get that technology dialed in. And I will say this, Paul, that most dealership management systems do not have a way to schedule reservations by your actual technical capacity. And it sounds weird to say that. Most of them are staging the reservations as a scheduled write-up time with your service advisor. And it's not taking into account how much work you can get in and out in a specialized skill category. Now, it tries to mesh it together with both of those things, but it's not a true capacity. Now, there are tools out there that are secondary to the DMS that are out these days that are fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about.
That will do that, but a lot of them still won't. Robert Sebastian was chiming in here. Let's take a note or two here, Paul. Why don't you? I'm going to say something from Robert, then you pick one here. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And then he said everything, and I could see it. He didn't capitalize it, but I could feel it that he said everything. Oh, yeah. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, Robert. That if the leadership's showing the way. And I think what you're alluding to is not being a boss or a dictator, but leading the team. Right. Then they're going to follow in those footsteps, and they're going to try to do the best. And a good leader gets people that will surpass them in even their own performance. So I agree with that, Robert. What comment do you see there, Paul, that you want to?
Well, there's an old Italian saying, the fish stinks from the head.
Wow.
You know, so the leadership is key because they set the tone, they set the pace. Now, Jeff Daniel said Subaru is such a different brand and their customer base believes in maintaining their vehicle and the company truly takes care of their customers. Now, I can vouch for that 100%, right? Like I said, I drive an hour to my Subaru dealer to get serviced. I don't always know what it's going to run me because at certain points, different things come up.
Sure.
But I know I'm going to have it done there.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, and your mindset on that is, I probably better have $500 or $600 spare to in case I do need something,
Whatever.
and one of the things that kind of I got on my list about pain points that delves into something we were already talking about is is a lot of the pain points I see are inconsistent, non-existent pricing strategies for competitive items. So they may not even have it set up where they've got all of their air filters flat priced or their cabin filters flat priced or their wiper blades, and they may not have the op code set up where they're optimally inputted so that you can charge that out on the repair order without having to struggle. That's a pain point, and I surprisingly see that a lot. Or I see a DMS that's jumbled up full of different operation codes that may have worked 24 months ago or whatever the last time we did a change, and they never got cleaned up. So inconsistent, non-existing pricing strategies, what ends up happening is that things get slipped and things get discounted where they shouldn't be because it should just be a touch of a button and it charges out appropriately.
Now, with discounts, that's another thing that's fairly easy to button up in most DMSs because you can put locks down on how much leeway they have, and you could spend a little bit more time training the advisors on how to handle the pricing objections if and when they come up, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, in that way, it's consistent, it's uniform. It doesn't matter who your service advisor is. The next time you talk to him, you get exactly the same thing, right? John Frazier had a comment that I missed about shop loading, and it said it's tough to know what category or skill the job fits prior to diagnosis. That is very certainly true, but you know what the general type of category is, and you almost have to make those categories that are similar. And let's take one that could be drivability or could be transmission, right? You're getting a fish bite at 60 miles an hour, 65 or whatever. You get a shutter when you are accelerating or what have you. So what is that, drivability, or what is that, trans? But as your capacity of your shop, what you want to do on those is you want to average that out. How much drivability do we have, and how many tickets are averaged a month? How much transmission do we have? What's the average per month? And we want to come up with an average on that so that we can those two categories can kind of coincide together in the same universe. Here's the other thing, John, is, and I'm sure you're privy to this, but if you've got a BDC or somebody else that's an appointment reservationist making your appointments that does not spend their life in a service drive, get them in your drive. And because what you'll find out is that person will start to think like you do. And prior to that, if you've got a separate BDC, and I know this is a pain point for some people, some dealerships, is that the two are too far separated. And you may have a BDC service BDC person that's never been a service advisor, and definitely vice versa. So that is a pain point for sure. Some of the other things on this list here, we're at about 40 minutes. What other comment you want to say here?
Mark says high turnover in your service drive can crush your owner loyalty and retention. Yeah,
definitely.
Because you've got a relationship built with the customer. The customer feels comfortable. They come in, and then they've got to re-explain the whole thing again. I'm a big fan of the team approach. I'm less of a fan of that's my advisor, because as we all know, there is turnover that occurs, and I'm a fan of the team approach where the customer is really the the store's customer, not a particular advisor's customer, because I think that helps the transition better when that person leaves. I think it puts the customer more at ease. What's your feeling on something like that?
I like the sound of that. If executing that would be great. I do think that, yeah, it's a relationship business, and he's got a fantastic point there that the turnover there can kill that customer's confidence level that we're a credible place for them to, invest their time and money and work on their car. But I also know that sometimes turnover is critical. If you got somebody that just will not do your process, they're a cancer. Even if their numbers are fantastic, but if they will not get on the bandwagon, then the turnover is actually a good thing. And yeah, it is painful, and it does cause some orphan customers. And really has, as a service manager, got to spend peak hours in the drive coaching and counseling and making sure those customers are comfortable with your new people, if you got new people, and explaining it to them and talking them up, and really bridging the gap between anybody that may have had a relationship with that customer previously. It's a very fair point. But, if you got someone in there turning 0.58 hours per RO with 300 tickets a month, 250 tickets a month, then you really, they should be paying you to be there, because you're losing money. So you can't have them there after that.
Linda Henson says, and customers don't understand that an appointment time isn't necessarily the time the repairs or maintenance work will actually begin.
Yeah.
This is a huge issue, as many retailers, especially if the BDC is doing the scheduling.
Hey, that's a perfect point. That's why I was saying, in a lot of DMS systems, and really your verbiage is that it's a scheduled drop-off time.
Right.
Or it's a scheduled write-up time for you to get with your service advisor. But I like scheduled drop-off time because you're not leaning that person towards being a waiter. I can't stand it. I can't stand it if somebody says, "Oh, will you be waiting?"
Yeah.
Well, what you've done by saying that, unfortunately, is that you've kind of inferred that it's okay to wait.
Right.
And you've kind of inferred that it's not going to be painful to wait. And it's yeah. And so you always want to lead with that. But no, he's got a fair point about the BDC is very good point. Hey, we got Linda Hansen in here, Paul.
Yeah, that was her comment just now.
I appreciate that. But yeah, scheduled drop-off time is what I like to go with, Linda. I would be interested to hear yours, because I know you've got a wealth of knowledge, Linda. So put that in the comments if you want to. Another pain point, Paul, that I get from dealers when I first get engaged with a dealer is, hey, my controllable expense management is not in control. It is definitely not in control. My policy adjustment's way too high. My advertising and promotion's way too high. My compensation is the number one thing usually that's way too high. My unapplied time is all out of whack. I think I hit the top 5 right there. But the controllable expense management not being in control, that's a huge pain point, Paul, since you were asking. But again, it harkens back to analysis, and oftentimes that includes going over the parts and service page of the financial statement and looking at averages. In a lot of DMSs, I've got the wherewithal to be able to pull reports that will kind of give me an expense analysis trend, because you want to see what's my average over a period of time, and do I have an anomaly? Am I trending up or am I trending down? And then it really kind of circles back to the lack of discipline and accountability of process management. But that's got a lot of different wrinkles when in some scenarios, because some dealers and dealer groups I engage with, they don't really give the service management the information, believe it or not, so that they can do the proper analysis before it becomes a problem, and to be able to proactively set up all of those things I mentioned. Make sure your shop supplies are a positive gain. Make sure that your policy is at an acceptable percentage of gross profit, usually around 1%. Make sure that your compensation is really in the right percentage, because a few things can happen there. As you can, as you know, you can get a combination of too many people in the, or you can get a combination of too many people paid inappropriately for the production they're producing, perhaps. So, but
Well,
that is
a couple of those areas, like the policy. I mean, that should be a fairly simple thing to keep a handle on. And as far as the pay is concerned, I'm a huge fan of Tully's pay plan. You know, where he fosters that whole environment, and they will all toe the line to get the job done,
mm-hmm.
and produce the results, because everybody has a stake in it.
No, it's a fair point. It's a very fair point. You know, but the expense controllables that I often see that are a management point, a lot of times is that the manager really has not really either paid attention to it or focused on it. Maybe he hasn't been trained to be able to focus on it. And in some cases, there are information that's really being withheld from them. That's a pain point that I get a lot. And so there are ways to analyze that. And as Michael was asking earlier, you got to take it a bite at a time and make incremental improvement. But you can show a dealer what kind of relative improvement that you can make over time based on reeling these numbers in with some very specific actions. So that's a pain point. Here's another one, Paul, that's huge, man. This one is huge, is poor internal reconditioning pricing and poor internal recon process management. So if you think about
really interesting one.
Say that again.
That is a really, really interesting one, right?
It is, and it's multifaceted, and you know, it's got a lot to do with the turn time of the actual used vehicle unit in your used vehicle inventory, and how quickly that we can get that vehicle to market. And
here's
so
the interesting piece. The interesting piece is that more often than not, the management will make a statement that is less time than the actual time that it takes from the moment the car is purchased to the moment the car goes over the curb. I had, you know, Josh from Recon Velocity.
Oh yeah,
I had Josh on.
I know Hugh from Recon Velocity.
Yeah, I mean, they have conversations with the dealers.
Yeah.
And yeah, cars are in and out. But when you do when you look at the actual days that the car sits.
Yeah. Well, and you know, there are little things in there that come up, but that is a pain point, poor internal reconditioning pricing. So here's one aspect about the pricing that I see a lot of old school thought still going on that progressive dealers have gotten way past a long time ago. But there are two trains of thought out there, in that if I charge retail for my recon fees, when I sell that car, I'm selling it from cost, including those recon fees. I'm realizing that retail profit within that. Okay. Right. If that car has to come back, on the contrary, if that car has to come back for a comeback that we end up eating, that's an internal policy. Okay. But if we are recondition our cars properly and the pricing is right, when that car sells, and as long as we don't have a lot of inventory that's not getting sold and that we're having a wholesale, then when that car sells, we're realizing retail profit, which is great for fixed operations and it's great for the dealer's bottom line. But I think where the old school aspect of it comes in is that a lot of used car director, used car inventory manager pay plans are not predicated on that concept. What they are wanting to do is to get the lowest cost of vehicle, whether or not the recon has been properly done, or that certainly they want it as cheap as they can get it. But in the overall picture of things, I think the dealer has got a better aspect on that if he charges his self retail. But I do see poor internal reconditioning pricing as one of the things that's holding dealers back for their profitability. And also process management, which you were alluding to, obviously is the time cycle. And there are a lot of dealers that don't really manage their time cycle. And let me give you an example. Most cars these days are bought online, right? We don't go through the auction anymore. We're going to come back with the flu if we do, right?
Right.
Going to come back with the Rona, baby. No, but we order them from our online, and we get them in the dealership. And I'm afraid what ends up happening is that when we issue that car a stock number after we pay for it, it starts the clock. Well, the car hasn't even hit the dealership yet. And so your data's corrupt. And you're saying, holy crud, we got a 13-day cycle time. But when you start looking at those, the clock started when you bought the car, you paid whoever your auction house was, and it won't even get to you for 4 or 5, 6 days. So
let me tell you something.
So a lot of times it's not you have to crack that, you have to peel that onion open a layer at a time and look at what the process management actually is and hit a firm reset button and take that from there.
There's a guy with Max Digital. His name is Tim Skoutelis. Do you know connected with him?
No.
Connect with him.
All right.
He puts that situation in words that hit the nail on the head. Their inventory is like a block of ice on hot asphalt. The minute you buy it, it starts melting. And that's your product.
Yeah. And so the timing is critical, but those are the two areas of pain I see from poor internal reconditioning, is that you got a pricing problem and you got a process problem. Right. And so we kind of peel those open one at a time, and whatever it is, you can equate a return on investment to it, and then scoreboard it, monitor it, and take action.
Yeah.
What other comments we got? I got one last point I was going to go through, Paul, but let's see.
Ed Roberts says leaders grow leaders.
I like that, Ed. I don't have I can't get my my feed to refresh, but thank you for saying that. That's true. And what I like to feel about in a dealership, and keep this in mind when you're hiring, and I hope you already do, is that just like me and most of the people that are service managers, general managers, or dealers, they started somewhere else. Okay. And within that dealership is a career path. And I've actually had some groups and dealership individual stores that will have you actually make like a flow chart or an org chart that says, and it's the purpose is attracting talent to your dealership, that it's not a dead end job. And your comment, Ed, about leaders grow leaders is so poignant, because that's exactly true. But if you can hire for that, then you're going to, when possible, that, can I see this porter graduating into a service advisor? Right? Can I see this lube tech graduating into a repair tech? Right? Can I see? Yeah, I mean, and that way we've got a career path. And you're right, Ed, is that a leader is going to have a vested interest really in pulling somebody up behind him, because guess what? He's going to keep going also.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to be Ed Roberts Ford.
It's not a job. It's a career plan.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No, but that's a very fair point, Ed, is that leaders do grow leaders. Thank you. my last point, and I only kind of slung 9 out here as pain points that I get. So any of you dealers watching, I want to also say that I'll be glad to do a free analysis for you and kind of examine some of these with you with no obligation at all. I just love helping people. And the ninth item really was is the pain point is parts department inventory. There's 2 parts of this, okay? Kind of like the used vehicle reconditioning. We had pricing and process. With parts, we got inventory and we got sales performance, right? And so there, again, is a multifaceted, living and breathing, profitable department in your dealership. It's the parts department. But by and large, you really got to keep a handle on your inventory control. And thank goodness OEMs have taken the ball and ran with it so far in the last 5-10 years, haven't they? And really made some good programs. Yes, they're restrictive, and yes, they do depend on OEM loyalty, and that can be a pain. But the management of the inventory is greatly improved in the last 5-10 years due to the fact that the OEMs have got programs that will, in a lot of cases, allow you to order on their program and return that stuff within a time frame, no charge, and also help you to build return obsolescence otherwise. But I still do have a parts inventory problems that are pain points that dealers bring me. And then the other one is sales performance lagging. Okay. And sales performance lagging can be, it is multifaceted as well, because it's made up of a lot of different stuff. So number one, are my percentages in line, right? Am I making the appropriate amount of gross profit percentages from my parts? Okay. So that's multifaceted. I've got a internal department. I've got a warranty department. I've got a customer pay repair shop department. I've got an express service department. I've got a wholesale department. I may have a wholesale mechanical department and a wholesale collision department. And so the sales performance lagging really is a multifaceted thing that if a dealer has got that as a pain point, Paul, I'm really looking into that to be able to bring to the table. What are the things that we can improve? What are the first things we can do? I'm not talking about 20 things, but what are the first 3 or 4 or 5 things that we can do right now to incrementally make improvement? And just keep going from there. But that was my discussion on pain points. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because I really hadn't thought about it in that much depth in quite a while, Paul. So thank you for having me.
Well, you have to look at the whole situation holistically.
Absolutely.
What are all the possible things that could go wrong, and how do we look at them? Everybody looks at the varying degrees of, depending on where they're experiencing more of the pain. However, there are lots of areas that dealers are not looking at.
And one of the I'm glad you brought that up, because if there could be a plethora of things we could do at your dealership, but one of my favorite dealers I work with says this, Paul. He says, let's start with chocolate and vanilla, and then we'll add sprinkles.
Yeah.
And what that really means is, let's take the 1, 2, or 3 or 5 key things and get them fixed, executing, and moving into incremental improvement. And that's what you really got to do is you got to take it one piece at a time, perfect it, make it a part of your culture, make it of the way. That's when we've always done it that way becomes a good thing. But you really got to take it a small thing at a time and digest it before you go piling on the next item.
Now, Linda says here, I work with several service managers who don't get to see much of the financial statements, which is so frustrating. How can you fix something that you don't know what the numbers are?
Yeah, I mean, really, the only thing you can do in your or my position, Linda, is expose that and be as candid and honest you can with the leadership of what what the positives, what's the with them for him, what's it going to
Right.
mean for him, and again, equate it back to return on investment. If you can come in back with a conservative return on investment on what those things will mean if they're incrementally improved, hopefully it'll open his eyes. But he's got to want it, or she,
Right.
that person has got to want the change and be willing to confront that. And I think us as consultants, trainers, and coaches have got to be able to be candid with them and tell them, hey, you got to let this gentleman have this information. In engagements that I've got, or this lady, in engagements that I've got, the most effective that they are, and explain to them why. And here's what it's going to mean to you. And a lot of times you can bust through that because they just never have given it to them, hadn't had a reason to. Sometimes there's not a good reason why they're not doing it, and just by confronting them, you can get it. You can get it to happen, and you can get better control of it because you can actually show them the 2, 3, or 4 things that you're going to focus on immediately there. That's going to spike that sheet. Next time it comes out, it's going to have better numbers in those categories.
Now, Linda has a follow-up to that. She says, John, what's your view on paying techs for the MPI?
Don't. I think that it should be part of the culture to do the MPI. And I can understand in the real world that I do have some dealers that have specialized technicians that maybe have 7 transmission jobs lined up outside, and they wouldn't be the one that did the upsell anyway. But I would accommodate that if needed. I would ultimately strive to have every technician do their own MPI. But in a situation like I just explained, sometimes you can run it through the quick lane just as easily, and those people will get the upsells and the money from that. And the way that I would do that is if you got 7 vehicles backed up for this transmission guy, go ahead and get them inspected, get your estimate up on the non-essential things. And then let the technician do the prime concern, and then you can come back with an estimate of everything included in the prime concern that they brought it in for, any immediate needs that shouldn't wait, and maintenance that's due or past due that could wait if it had to, and give them a holistic price, like Paul was saying earlier about doing the whole job. But that's kind of the way I'd handle it. It's not a perfect science. Technicians are technicians, and you definitely got some strong personalities there that we have to employ those people because they actually do the work and they don't grow on trees. And if they're doing a great job, sometimes we do have to accommodate that.
But here's how I look at that same question.
Yeah,
we do pay them on the MPI.
Okay.
Because let's face it, the better they do,
right.
There are guys that they don't like doing certain jobs, so they don't look at it or they just mark it off. The better job they do on the MPI and the better job we do conveying, selling the green, right?
Yeah.
Selling the yellow, selling the red. So they do get paid on it.
Well, I have heard that, but I'm just saying in reality, what I've seen happen in those cases is that the MPI really doesn't get done to a great degree. And we're just flagging that guy 2/10 or whatever, or paying him $8, and we're not getting it back because of what I just explained is that it's a specialty person and they could care less if they're doing that work. So I'm not a fan of paying them, but that's just me. I still do have a couple dealerships that do pay them because they don't feel the same as I do. But all I can do is give my best advice, and I definitely believe in running some spiffs and contests for technicians for legitimate upsells when appropriate. That is a good way to approach that, but that's performance based. So that's my input on that.
Well, that's awesome. There's so much we can cover, and the questions just came in rapid fire, so wasn't able to address every single one. However, if you have some time, I usually go through all the comments. If you have some time, maybe we can discuss some of the ones that maybe we didn't catch. As kind of
I'll definitely do that right now. And like I said, thanks for having me on, Paul. You've got a great platform that you've carved out of nothing on Sunday nights. And I thank you for letting me highlight myself. And, I'm in business really to help people to improve. And I'm only looking, and I only really engage people who are ready to do that. So it really makes a win-win situation for everybody. But thank you. And if it's anything I can do for anybody that's watching or listening or in the comments, I'll be glad to do any kind of analysis that you'd like or what have you, just to help.
And then before we knock off here, just a reminder for those not familiar, Ted Ng's Fixed Ops Roundtable is coming up on February 9th, 10th, and 11th, a 3-day extravaganza. Get your complimentary tickets at fixedopsroundtable.com. So there are going to be lots of great speakers, John Fairchild being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'll be there, and a lot of really good people. So check it out. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that plug. It's the way that they've got it arranged this time. Also with the 3 days, is if you're really looking for something specific, check out the agenda manifest, and you can kind of pinpoint what part of the day that may be the most beneficial on the when they're streaming, so you can get your information.
Yeah,
so I really like that.
It'll be the 10th roundtable.
Wow, what?
With every one, they just get that much.
10.
The 10th. The 10th. Can you believe that?
No.
Yeah, the 10th. Who knew that? Who knew that it would gain momentum and kind of become its own brand? It's really amazing. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to
thank you, everybody. Thank you for the thoughtful comments. I appreciate you guys.
And we'll see you. Have a successful week, and we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.